In this Revit video, I want to talk about how you can create a 3D view. Up until this point, we've been working only in the floor plan or elevation views, which are essentially 2D orthographic views. If you look in your project browser over on the left, you'll see that you have the floor plan and ceiling plan views along with the elevations, but nothing else. I opened up my project in the architectural template, and that's really all I was given. If you want to see your model in 3D, what you need to do is first create a default 3D view. You can find that by going to the View tab and then clicking on 3D View. It looks a little bit like a birdhouse or something like that. You can also find this up on the QAT, the Quick Access Toolbar, and you can get to it that way. But whichever way you choose, you click on 3D View, and this will give you your initial default 3D view. If I scroll down in the project browser, you'll see that now a new section has appeared called 3D views. If I click on the plus sign, there will be a 3D in brackets, and that's the view that I'm currently in. So now I can actually experience the building as it's looking so far in 3D, so I have a better idea of how things look. I can see that the exterior walls are taller than the interior walls, for example, and that type of thing. If I want to move around in this 3D space, I can scroll back towards myself to zoom out and forward to zoom in. I can push down the wheel of my mouse to pan around and go from side to side. But that's about all I can do without knowing an extra step. If you actually want to orbit around in 3D, what you need to do is hold down the Shift key and then push down on the wheel of your mouse. That allows you to actually orbit around your building. So I can see on the top, underneath. And you can see that right now I don't actually have a floor in my model. That's actually very common in Revit, is to not really put your floor in until you need it. And that works out really well because you can go from one level to the next in the project browser, so it doesn't really matter. The furniture, for example, will just sit on that level. You don't actually need a floor there. Other than holding down Shift and pushing down the wheel to orbit around, you can use the view cube that's available. It was hooked into my navigation bar over here. The view cube is very similar to the one in AutoCAD, and you'll see that you can actually click on various corners to get to those precise views, on faces to flip around and look at it end to end, and so on. So some people prefer using the view cube, and you can even pivot that way, and some people prefer using the shift and wheel method. That's really up to you. But now you'll look in your project browser and see that you're able to go from the floor plan, level 1, level 2, and so on, and then make your way down to a 3D view, and you'll always have that available. Now that you have a default 3D view that you're able to orbit around and see your full building as it is so far, you might find it useful to also have a second option where we can put a section box around it and actually crop the view. You could just do that to this model, but I find it's nice to have different versions of the 3D view to go back to, so you don't have to constantly adjust it. To make a copy of a view, all we have to do is go over to the project browser and right-click on the view that we want to copy. So I'll right-click on my 3D view and go up to Duplicate View and Duplicate. I have an identical copy now of my 3D view, so it looks exactly the same. Then I'm going to come over, and I would recommend actually renaming it. Leaving it copy of 3D certainly doesn't hurt anything, but I find that once you get a bunch of 3D views, that can be a little bit annoying. So I'm just going to right-click and go into Rename and call it Section Box or something like that. So I'll call it Section Box. Now, just renaming it, that of course didn't actually put the section box around it. What I need to do now is go into my properties and actually give this view a section box. When you don't have any geometry, any components or anything actually selected, your properties palette will be giving you the information about your view. So I can see here that this is a 3D view. If I grab this scroll bar and then make my way down past all of the graphic information and identity data, I want to make my way down to extents. Right here we can give ourselves a crop view, region, or annotation. These are things I'll get into in a different video. But right now I want to get into the section box. I'm going to check the box for section box, and then I can either click on apply or just move my cursor out here. Once I do that, you'll see that there is a large box all the way around my building. The beautiful thing about the section box is this. If I click on the box, it will activate grippers on each of the faces. What I can do then is grab one of these little controls and actually move it in or out, and it will crop off the rest of my model, and so I can just see inside of the area that I want. So as you're working on a more complicated model and you want to be able to see into specific rooms, or for example maybe I wanted to work on something on this wall or something like that, that makes your job a lot easier. So I'll have a section box view that I can come back to and manipulate and work on as much as I want to. Just trying to grab that gripper there. But then I'll also have a normal 3D view where the building is intact. So that will just populate in my project browser and give me another way of working with and looking at my project.